Do you like books? Do you have a lot of books in your house? Where do you keep your books? Hello everyone, I'm Kathleen Pelly. Welcome to Journey with Story. Well, I'm sure that many of you are book lovers and story lovers. After all, that's why you like listening to this podcast. And I'm sure that many of you maybe have your very own bookcase in your bedroom where you keep your favourite books. Well, today's episode is about a man who loves books so much that he eventually runs out of space to fit them into his tiny house. But luckily, he comes up with a very creative solution. This is an original story written by me for you. And this story is dedicated to all the girls and boys and their teachers and parents at the Living Learning Homeschool, Family Clusters Kinder I, and SNSD, who hosted a Zoom author's visit from me last month, all the way in the Philippines. And the boys and girls then performed 2 beautiful songs. You can take a listen here.
Ang mga mabubuting bata, gumagalang sa nakakatanda, sumasagot ng may opo, nagpapaliwanag ng may po at opo. Kundol batona, upo kalabasa, meron pa, sawanos mustasa, sibuyas kamatis.
Thank you, boys and girls at the Living Learning Homeschool, for sharing your sweet voices with all of our listeners on Journey with Story. Wasn't that beautiful? And if you're a parent or a teacher who would like to host a Zoom meeting from me, you can find out more about how to do that if you visit our website at www.journeywithstory.com. Let's take a journey with the Bookery. Timothy Tuttle was a lover of books. He had oodles of them stuffed into every nook and cranny of his itty-bitty house, which was an attic above the bakery. Books, 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 everywhere a book. Timothy Tuttle had books for sunny days and soggy days, for up days and down days. He had books for everyone and anyone, for fusspots and worrywarts, for bossy boots and know-it-alls, for dreamers and doers. And in times of trouble, be it a torn teddy, a bent bike, or a sick kitty, Timothy Tuttle always turned up with a listening ear, a hearty hug, and just the book to banish the blows and heal the hurt. But whenever he popped into the baker's below to lend a book, Mr. Cameron only tisked and tutted and shooed him away. "I've no time for books," he grumbled. "There's bread to bake and buns to frost. Besides, I've told you before, Mr. Tuttle, you have altogether too many books. You are going to run out of room one of these days." Timothy Tuttle only chuckled. No, 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 he insisted. "Books are like friends. There will always be room for another." And when one dreadful day Timothy Tuttle did run out of room for his beloved books, he simply shrugged and said, "Oh dear, now I will just have to find some more unusual spots for my books." And that is just what he did. He crammed a bundle into the empty oven. He wedged some in between the stairs. He squirreled a few into socks and slippers and shoes. He buried others in bread baskets and flower pots. He even built a turret of books by the window and a tunnel of books in the hall. And now the only place left for him to read was, perched atop a mound of books in the bathtub. But Timothy Tuttle never complained. Instead, he continued to feast on books. Books that moved him to tears, to smiles, to do good and to be more. Books, 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 from cellar to ceiling, through hall and bedroom and beyond. Books brimmed. "Too many books," scolded Mr. Cameron as he bumped into a merry band of book lovers bounding down the stairs. "Nonsense," called Timothy Tuttle from the landing. "Books are like friends. They make you love more. You can never have too many." And indeed, everyone agreed you could not wish for a finer friend than Timothy Tuttle. When little Lucinda Brennan was in the hospital with a spot of tummy trouble, Timothy Tuttle trundled off to give her a wheelbarrow full of books tied up in a ribbon. He stayed a while and read her his favourite book of poems. "Oh, you're a pal," trilled Lucinda, and her face sparkled like a star. When Fireman Jim's old cat Alice died, Timothy Tuttle bustled off to the fire station with a tuna casserole and a book called Kitty Heaven. He hung around to listen to some Alice stories, and then he left with a wave and a hug. And when Mr. Cameron came down with the flu, it was Timothy Tuttle who kept the bakery open. But how will you manage?" sputtered Mr. Cameron. "Oh, not to worry," soothed Timothy Tuttle. "I've read up all about it." For 4 days Timothy Tuttle kneaded the dough, frosted the buns and baked the bread, while customers streamed in and out. Meanwhile, Mr. Cameron lay in the back bedroom with a bottle of medicine, a bowl of soup, and a bundle of books. Day after day, spoonful by spoonful, the soup and the medicine chased away his fever and his chills. And page after page, word by word, those books of stories buried their way into his heart and charmed him into a book lover with a penchant for pirate stories. On the 5th day, Mr. Cameron told Timothy Tuttle, "I'm almost better now, but still, can you bring me another bundle of books tomorrow?" "Ah, certainly," agreed Timothy Tuttle. But before tomorrow dawned, a storm began to brew. In the middle of the night, the rain lashed and the wind screeched. A mighty gust ripped a hole through the roof. Torrents of rain gushed in. "My books!" cried Timothy Tuttle as he leapt out of bed. "They'll be ruined!" He called his friend Fireman Jim. He came at once with his fire brigade. "It's going to take a while to mend this roof," yelled Fireman Jim. "You need to move your books somewhere safe at once." But where?" wailed Timothy Tuttle. "My bakery, of course." It was Mr. Cameron. He had heard all the commotion and had come to help. "Splendid," agreed Timothy Tuttle. "But how can we move all these books?" "We could use our special fireman's chute," suggested Fireman Jim. But it turned out the attic staircase was too narrow for the chute and for all those burly firemen. "Oh dear, now what shall we do?" wailed Mr. Cameron. Timothy Tuttle had no answer. He bit his lip. His heart flip-flopped as he thought about a bookless life. As he stared outside and pondered his predicament, he noticed a flock of friends. "We've heard about your troubles," they yelled as they hammered on his door. "We're here to help." At once, Timothy Tuttle mustered his wits and his manners. "In you come," he cried. "Now, make a chain," he ordered, "a human chain. We can move the books hand to hand." And that is just what they did. Friend by friend, hand to hand, book by book, in stacks and piles and bundles, they moved that attic full of books until they were all lined up next to the bread and the buns, safe and snug and dry. "Thank you, my friends," cried Timothy Tuttle, amidst a flurry of cheers and tears. Until his roof was mended, Timothy Tuttle stayed with Mr. Cameron in the bakery. Then he returned to his attic with a pile of his favourite books, but the rest remained at the bakery. As it turned out, Mr. Cameron liked having a bounty of books in his store. "It's good for business," he declared. And Timothy Tuttle liked having such a bounty of nooks and crannies to sit and read again. "It's good for the soul," he declared. Mr. Cameron and Timothy Tuttle hung up a new sign outside. The Bookery. Now, from far and near, people flocked to buy their bread, borrow a book, and make a friend or two. Books, 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 everywhere a book. So, I wonder, do you think it's true you can never have too many books? Do you think it's true that you can never have too many friends? Do you think it's true that books are a little bit like friends? There was a word there that I used. I wonder if you guessed the meaning of it. When Mr. Cameron fell in love with books, I said he had a penchant for pirate stories. It's a French word, and it just means a fondness. So he grew a fondness for pirate stories. I wonder what your favourite type of stories are. We'd love to hear. You can always send us what your favourite type of stories are by sending us an email at Kathleen@KathleenPelly.com. And remember, if you're enjoying this podcast, we'd love it if you'd rate it and review it and share it with others so that they too can enjoy these stories and share them with others. Cheerio then. Join me next time for Journey with Story.